Hi, folks. We are here.
Hey, everybody.
We're waiting for Comrade Misty. But meanwhile, I'm going to share on Facebook, as I usually do. I hope you're having a nice day today and you're not too angry by all the adverse events that have been happening. We know what to do about those. We fight, fight, fight. That's what we're going to do.
That's what we're going to have to do, right? I don't think we've got much choice.
Nope. In a way, that's comforting when you don't have much choice. You just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start sharing to groups now.
Yeah, I'm doing that now too. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. That's nothing to be sorry about. I'm glad you're sharing to the groups.
Yeah, I'm just like la la.
I shared the Red Berets on Facebook. That sounds like Misty might have arrived, so I'll take a look and let her in. Nope. Not yet. So, what happened? Hey, Scott, how are you? I saw you out there.
I have to mute my phone. Sorry.
Okay.
Boy, today was a busy day. I was running around all day long.
Yeah, it was a busy day for me too. I wasn't actually running around outside, but I was kind of running around here, running around Twitter. There's Misty now. So I'm going to bring her in. Hello, Misty.
Hello. Excuse my tardiness.
Hey, how are you, Misty?
I'm
great
doing
to
well.
be here.
It's good to meet you guys.
It's great to meet you too. Finally.
It is great to meet you, Misty. And here we are, or this is the view we will normally have. I think I'm going to take the promo away now. And so here we are. So good evening, everybody. This is the In-Depth Show. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. My guest for tonight is Misty, Comrade Misty, Putin's buddy.
That's me.
Really a wonderful handle. It is always good for a laugh. And we're going to be talking Julian Assange tonight, but my co-host is Lisa Theobald, Operations Director of the Red Berets.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining.
We won't be talking Medicare for All tonight. We'll be talking Julian Assange. And so, how shall we start? Shall we start with our positions on Julian Assange?
I think everybody knows my position.
Yeah, why don't you I was going to say why don't Misty, were you at the protest in New York or no?
No, I'm in Ohio.
Oh, you are. I'm in Pennsylvania. Where in Ohio?
Just outside Columbus.
Nice. I'm north of Pittsburgh.
Nice. Yeah.
Um,
Howdy,
how-
neighbor.
How far are you from Columbus? Because Columbus is in the south, isn't it?
No, Columbus is in the center, dead center.
Oh, dead center of
Mhm.
Ohio.
Yep. It is right smack dab in the middle.
So, how long a drive is it?
To Columbus,
Columbus,
maybe
Pittsburgh.
about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on where you're going.
It's only 20 to 30 minutes from Pittsburgh to Columbus?
No.
Oh,
From
no,
where I
no.
am. No. From where I am.
No, I'm not sure.
Pittsburgh, I think, is
it
6
3?
hours.
Oh, is it that long?
It's a while. Maybe. I don't know. Hold on. I may
Well,
be
we're
wrong.
like 5 hours from Cincinnati. I know that because that's we got family there. So, but I
Oh,
don't think
okay.
that's
No, Pittsburgh is only 2 hours, 57 minutes. So 3 hours.
3 hours.
That's right. Because
Okay.
it's the same, about the same to Indianapolis as it is to Pittsburgh. That's right.
Okay, so let's get away from the geography and let's get to Julian.
Okay.
Okay, my position on Julian is very simple, awfully simple. To me, Julian Assange is a publisher, and the United States government has been committing a human rights crime all of this time. And it is, I won't even say it is unacceptable, it is heinous. It is heinous. They're undermining the Constitution of the United States, and they're undermining other democracies as well. They've dragged Sweden into this thing, okay, and the UK into this thing, and they're all violating the rights, okay, of Julian Assange. It has got to stop. I don't know how we stop it exactly, but we have to do whatever we can to stop it. So that, okay, is my position. What is your position, Lisa?
I'm terrified that we're going after, our First Amendment rights. We already have a problem with the media here in the U.S., a big one. And it can't, I'm really concerned about what I feel is our march towards fascism. And
We're there.
And so am I.
We're already there.
We are. I still get chastised for using the word, if you can stand it. People think that that's just, hyperbole, whatever.
Yeah, I used it twice in different tweets today.
Yeah,
I'm using it very frequently now.
I think we need to start shaking people awake. We cannot allow our government to persecute journalists. And all the independent media is lined up, but people are asleep. Not the leftists, but people.
Well,
on the
actually,
block.
yes, leftists.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Really?
And not all of independent media is lined up, unfortunately.
But which part of independent media is not lined up?
Oh, do you want me to name names? Because I can, but there's
Sure.
Yeah,
There's
why
a-
not? Call
there's
them
a
out.
lot of people who refuse to cover it or cover it very infrequently. For example, I'll pick on Kyle Kalinske again, as I do all the time. He thinks that if he does like an 8-minute video every 6 months, that's satisfactory, and it's not. This is the largest threat to press freedom that we have ever seen, and an 8-minute video every 6 months doesn't cut it. And he's not the only one. Tim Black won't cover it. There's a multitude of people on in the independent media space who won't touch it at all. We've had Action4Assange, who I'm a co-host for and I've been organizing with for a long time. We have had people straight up tell us that they won't cover it because it affects they're afraid that their channel will get affected, whether they'll get demonetized or they'll get, the algorithm will get messed with or whatever. So they're
that's
more
good.
concerned about clicks and subscriptions and Patreons than they are about protecting the future of press freedom, which they don't seem to understand that if press freedom goes away, so does their career.
So
Yeah,
they don't seem to get
so
that.
does their money. So does their
So does
money.
our freedom.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. You
Yeah.
sleeping.
I wish that all of the leftists were in line. I wish that all of independent media were in line. We're working on it. We've been trying to pressure all of these people for a long time. And we have seen some people come around. We have seen some people really like Fred Hampton Leftist has done a great job. They've had me on several times. I've had other people on several times. Ryan Knight has had Marjorie Cohn on. He had myself on. There are people who have been willing to start covering it, due to the pressure that we've put on them. But for the most part, it's sadly few and far between. Like TYT won't touch it. But that's not really a surprise, I don't think, to anybody.
No.
No, that's not a surprise.
Yeah, we need regular coverage, and good coverage. We are facing an extreme media blackout. The mainstream media doesn't touch this at all, and when they do, it's to spread misinformation. And so we need a lot of coverage to combat that. And what independent media is doing is not sufficient. And I will keep pushing them. People get mad at me all the time because I pressure people like Kyle Kalinske or Mike Figueredo or TYT or whatever to cover Julian Assange more often. But they have huge platforms, and I'm not going to stop pressuring them. We need those kinds of people who have big platforms to help us break through the media blackout.
Has David Doel been covering it at all?
Not really. No. What's the other guy? Oh, I'm forgetting his name. David Pakman. Not really.
No, well, I wouldn't expect it from David.
Yeah. But these are the people who have the largest platforms, which is why, unfortunately,
except Jimmy Dore, of course.
Jimmy Dore's great. Jimmy Dore is fantastic. He's always been fantastic on Julian Assange. He's, for years, for as long as I've been watching him, he's had Gabriel and John Shipton on his show, which is Julian's father and brother. He's had a multitude, Glenn Greenwald on to talk about it. So Jimmy Dore does a fantastic job. I always wish that he would cover it more, but I'm always going to wish that everybody covers it more.
Katie Halper does a great job.
Katie Halper does a great job.
So
yes.
Matt Taibbi, all those people. Yeah, they do a really great job.
Brianna Joy Gray does an okay job. She covers it some. I wish she would cover it more. But she has had on some really important voices, so I'll give her credit for that. Again, I'm always going to wish people would cover it more.
Okay, let's go into some of the questions. I don't mean to say questions surrounding the case, but essentially looking at the future. What do you think the prospects are? Is he going to be extradited from the UK, or do you think that they will finally let him go free?
That's a really difficult question to answer because nothing about this case makes sense at all in any way whatsoever. So it really could go either direction. Personally, I think as they have been doing this entire time, they're going to attempt to delay for as long as possible. Essentially, the process is the punishment. They don't really want to extradite him. They really just want to torture him.
Is correct. Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
The process is the punishment. They've been delivering the punishment now since when? 2011?
Over a decade, yes.
Over a decade. And so they look at it and they say, this is a deterrent.
Right.
This is a deterrent, the real deterrent for people. So perhaps they've decided that now this is enough of a deterrent for anybody. But maybe they haven't. Maybe they want more.
Yeah.
Do they really want to take his life?
I think that I don't know that they necessarily want, I think that they'd be fine with him dying. I think that there's a fear that they probably have that they're going to make a martyr of him, which is a definite possibility. But I think really what you just said is the goal, is that they want to cause a chilling effect across journalism. And not only that, they are attempting to establish global jurisdiction over information and journalism. So the United States right now, and they've admitted to this in court, essentially, they basically said that we want to have the power to arrest and extradite anybody, anywhere, at any time. Whether Julian Assange isn't even an American citizen, and we're charging him under our Espionage Act, but we're not affording him any of the protections of the First Amendment. So we definitely want to have our cake and eat it too, and we want to extend that power across the globe, and we want to be able to do this to anybody who publishes something or prints something or says something that embarrasses empire.
Yes, of course, I know that.
Where do you get to the point where it's more terrifying not to do something? Because that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And so many people went silent on Julian Assange after the whole election thing. And and Trump getting in. And I think there was some hope that Trump was going to do something about this because you know how he is. He lied through his teeth while
Trump was never going to do anything about this.
Right. But he made it seem like he was while he was running.
Yes,
right?
because that's his base wanted him to do something about it. His base, generally speaking, I have more luck with people on the right than I do on the left in talking about Julian Assange, which is sad beyond comprehension. Free speech used to be a solidly leftist issue, and the left has completely given up. Like, they just do not talk about it. And in fact, our progressives in Congress are regularly calling for more censorship. It's terrifying. So his base is very much, they very much wanted him to act and to do something to save Julian Assange's life. But Trump was never going to do anything that would put himself in jeopardy. Trump is a narcissist, and he is only about protecting himself. And he knew that if he did something to save Julian Assange, that they were going to come after him in whatever way that they could. And there are many ways that they could come after him because he's corrupt. So, he was never, it was worth I myself put in a ton of effort, calling, tweeting, emailing, tweeting at people who were in his circle. I mean, we put in the effort. We absolutely did. But it was a definite, long shot, like a really, really long shot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so let's say the worst happens. Okay. And the English decide to send him here. Then what do we do?
You mean as activists?
As activists.
Oh.
What do we do at that point?
That brings it to our home turf.
What kind of campaign should we be planning?
The same things that we've been planning. There's global actions on a regular basis, but we need to get much louder. This is what I keep trying to impress upon people, that the only thing that fixes this, that changes this, is mass public pressure. That's it. That is the only way that we save Julian's life. It's the only way that we save our First Amendment. It's the only way that we prevent ourselves from taking an even farther slide into fascism. We're already there, but if we lose press freedom and the United States has control over all of our information, we cannot effectively fight for anything that we care about at that point. I can't. I understand that, this is a very complex issue, and, the threat to free speech is a very abstract concept. It's not in your face every day. It's not the same thing as I can't take my kid to the doctor, or I can't afford groceries. But this is an unbelievably crucial issue that we all need to be focusing on, that we all need to be, putting some effort into. I'm not asking you to make it your singular cause or your only cause or your top cause, but we need people speaking out about this on a regular basis. We need noise. We need mass public pressure. We can't appeal to their better angels. They have none. The courts are not going to do the right thing unless we make it politically there's no way that they could do it. We have to make it untenable, politically untenable, for them to extradite and prosecute Julian Assange, period. And not just not extradite him. He needs to be released. He needs to be released. He should have never been arrested. But now that he's in prison, when the no extradition ruling came on January 4th, he should have immediately been released on bail. And instead, they denied him bail and kept him in the conditions that caused the mental health distress that they were denying the extradition on. So it makes no sense whatsoever. Again, like I said earlier, nothing about this case makes any sense.
Yeah, the only way it makes any sense is if they were trying to use the process to punish him. Mm-hmm. And the English were in on it too.
Oh yeah, they're a Five Eyes country. Of course, they're in on it. Yeah.
So I know that what's today? Wednesday?
Mm-hmm. No, Thursday.
Thursday. No, today
is Thursday already.
Okay, yeah, I never know what date it is.
I don't either anymore. They're all running together. Okay, so where are they now? Are they still in hearing or no?
No. So there was 2 days of hearings last week, a week actually from yesterday and today. And so that was the appeal hearing in which the United States presented their appeal case based on the mental health grounds that the extradition was denied on. And so now we have 2 judges who are going to take their sweet old time examining the different aspects of that appeal and the rebuttal to it. And it could be weeks, it could be months. There's no time limit. They could take as long as they want to come back with a decision on that.
Okay, so I remember the 2 days, we were so busy that I didn't read what had happened though at the conclusion. So we're just waiting for them to come back now.
Yes. Again, we're just waiting.
Again, right?
Yeah. There's considerable pressure in Britain to free him, isn't there?
There's a significant amount of pressure, not as much as we need, but there are a large group of unbelievable activists and protesters who are friends of mine who protest twice a week. They never miss. It doesn't matter if it's rain, snow, they don't care. They get bullied by the police all the time, especially during COVID, and they don't care. They go anyway. When they were under strict lockdown and the only way you could go outside is if you exercise, they would like go for a jog and carry signs. They're amazing people. They have been doing an incredible amount of work and put in a ton of effort. We could always use more people, but yes, there is and it's growing. I will say that. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer. It is growing. I mean, in the last 2.5 years or so since we started Action4Assange, we've seen significant growth, not just in the UK but also in the United States. So we just need that to continue. We just need it to continue in a much faster manner. We need it faster.
Won't the pressure begin to accelerate it as we get closer and closer to a decision on him?
You would think, but unfortunately, what happens when we're in one of these like kind of lull periods where it's just like a waiting, people stop paying attention.
Right.
When the hearings were happening, people were paying attention. Assange was trending on Twitter. It was something that people were talking about. But now that we're just waiting, other things are happening. Their attentions are on other things. They're dealing with their own issues of, again, not being able to afford to go to a doctor or whatever. And so a lot of people are distracted. They're not paying attention to this. And so that's why we need more people, because the more people we have talking about it, the more eyes that we can get on it, the more people that we can get angry about it, because we really do need anger. We need anger. We need people to be fired up and ready to, go to battle over this. This is a huge issue.
We need to take the Espionage Act away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do.
It was an unconstitutional act from the first. The courts, of course, have never interfered in it. They certainly should have, but they've just accepted it. But it's so obviously unconstitutional, so obviously interferes with freedom of speech and freedom of press. Okay, it was used to jail Gene Debs, of course, at that time. It's for most of the history, it's been rather quiescent, except for a few cases. It was used, of course, against Daniel Ellsberg, unsuccessfully there. And then things became quiet. Okay. But then, in the 21st century, it was picked up again. It was picked up again very heavily by Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And he used it frequently. And it was obvious that it was just for the purpose of freezing up the press from the start.
Mr. Transparency.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He jailed more whistleblowers and journalists than all other presidents combined. He's a liberal, a Democrat. That's what they're doing. So yeah, the Espionage Act is incredibly awful. It needs to go away. Tulsi Gabbard introduced legislation before she left Congress to, kind of tweak it. I'm not okay with tweaking it. It needs to just go away.
Okay, so I have to say this. He was no liberal.
Yeah, Obama was no liberal. He was a
I mean,
Republican.
that's what he presented himself as. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what
You can't present yourself as a liberal and be freezing civil liberties, because people like Emanuel Seller are turning over in their graves.
Right.
Absolutely turning over. Okay, what would happen? They would have been livid at this. All the people we thought of as liberals in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, they would never say this was liberal.
No, but it just goes to show you exactly what I said earlier. We are in fascism. The Democrats have moved so far to the right that they are now the Republican Party, and the Republican Party has gone completely off the wall. You know what I mean? Like we are very much, people talk about fighting fascism all the time.
He has gone fascist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about fighting fascism all the time, and you're too late. We're already there.
We're there, but people don't want to hear it.
No.
You don't. I mean, I'm starting to understand how fascism took over Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I really am starting to see it, because nobody wants to hear it. Like, I'll say
No.
that word and people get mad at me.
And the people who get mad at you for saying it are probably the same people who are calling me a Nazi and a fascist.
Probably.
Which makes me giggle.
I don't know, folks. We don't. I just.
But you
we
can't
wake
be
up.
a Nazi. How can you be a Nazi when you're Putin's buddy?
Well, apparently I'm on both payrolls. I'm on multiple payrolls. I'm a grifter too. So I'm pulling in the big bucks. That's why I got my money bags back there.
Jeez Louise.
Okay, so I'd really like to turn this again to the question of, if the worst happens and he's sent here, what kind of planning is there to get him out? What
Well,
kind
we need to get in the streets.
Yeah,
I mean, we need to be in the streets now.
all roads are
We've
leading
been in the streets,
thing.
but we need other people to join us in the
We
streets,
have to
please.
be in the streets for dozens of things. So
Yeah,
the
we got a
question
lot.
is, what specifically are we going to do to get Julian Assange free if he is sent here?
Well,
Yeah.
again, get in the streets. Like we have to make it politically untenable for them to continue the persecution of Julian Assange. We have to make it well known that this is an unacceptable thing, that we're not going. I mean, the United States, it makes me sad. Americans have completely lost their spine. We are willing to accept like crumbs, not even crumbs. They're like flicking the crumbs of crumbs in our general direction. And we're praising the people in power. Y'all need to stop doing that. We need to start standing up against these people. That's whatever we allow is what will continue. And when we continue to allow them to do these things over and over and over again, of course they're going to continue to do it. When we allowed Barack Obama to arrest more whistleblowers and journalists and all other presidents combined, of course Trump was going to go after Julian Assange. It set the stage for that. We have to regain our spine. We have to stop allowing these things to continue. We have to stop making excuses for these politicians and acting like they're our friends or that they're actually working for us. They're not. We need to, get in the streets. We need to organize strikes. We need to, all of the things that you do for any cause that you care about. If you really want to affect change, those are the things we need to be doing for Julian Assange. And the reason why I think we need to be doing it for Julian Assange, and not just Julian Assange, but for the future of press freedom first, is because this issue affects every other issue that we care about. We cannot effectively fight for anything else unless we have the ability to disperse information, educate people, have conversations, and we're not going to be able to do that if Julian Assange is allowed to be extradited and prosecuted.
Okay, so what kind of network is there to actually generate the general strikes that we need?
We have a huge worldwide network. It is, and again, it's growing. We have the Candles for Assange Twitter account is the person, my friend Alex. She's in charge, not really in charge of. She has very graciously taken it upon herself to organize and promote all of the global Julian Assange actions that happen on a regular basis. For example, in Germany, they do like 3 actions a week in Germany, and across Germany, not just in one location. There's like multiple different cities that are doing actions like 2 or 3 times a week. That's what we need to see across the United States. And we've started building that. Before Action4Assange was started, there wasn't really a solid stateside movement for Julian Assange. And so in the 2.5 years that we've been doing Action4Assange, we've seen a multitude of groups spring up across the country. There's groups now in Tulsa, and there's groups in Denver, and there's groups in North Carolina. So it's growing. And so we just need more people to involve themselves. We need more people to help us spread the message, help us share those events, attend those events. But we already have like a pretty solid network of people. There are a multitude of different organizations that are working for Julian Assange, like Assange Defense or Don't Extradite Assange. The Courage Foundation does amazing work. There's a lot of really solid organizations, and we already have a pretty widespread network of groups that are already holding regular actions. So we just need to continue to build on that, and we need people to continue to help us really just get the messaging out, because with a global media blackout, just getting people aware. Most ordinary people don't even know who Julian Assange is. They have no idea what's happening to him. And that's really where the fight is first. We have to get people educated first. We have to inform them about what's happening to their First Amendment in broad daylight. And once we get those people educated, a lot of those people are going to be willing to get more involved.
How's the strength of the network in the major cities, as in Los Angeles, New York? Chicago.
There's a San Francisco group, there's a Chicago group, there's a New York group. We don't have one in LA, I don't think, not yet. I know that they have done a multitude of actions there. I don't think that there's like a actual solid organization, but they have done a multitude of actions there. My friend Glory Jones actually goes to school in the LA area. So she is organizing events there all the time. My friend Steve is in the California area, so he will go and attend. Convo Couch is in the LA area, so they'll attend those events as well. So we don't have like a solid group in LA, but we do have actions there. But San Francisco has a group, Chicago has a group, New York has a group. I'm probably forgetting some places, but yeah, there's a pretty solid network of organizations that are growing and picking up, and that's in just like the past 2.5 years.
Who are some of the people in San Francisco who are involved?
I'm really bad at names. Especially with all the groups that we have. And I don't really communicate with the San Francisco group a whole lot. They have a Twitter page. You guys can go. I don't know. I'd have to look it up to see what it is. But yeah, they organize regular actions too, especially around court dates and things like that. They're constantly organizing, when we have big events that are happening. I'm pretty sure that they've organized for Daniel Hale as well. So.
Okay, we missed you for a few seconds because the stream was interrupted. Actually, for all three of us. But so if you could repeat just the last part of that.
I honestly don't remember what I said. Something about they organize all the time. I don't communicate with them on a regular basis. I know some of the people in like Eric Harvey in Chicago. Randy Credico does a lot of stuff in New York. So he's fantastic. He just did like another really awesome show. He has amazing guests that come on. So yeah, there's a bunch of different people, but I haven't really ever communicated with the San Francisco group directly.
Okay. So there are groups scattered around the country. There's no central networking.
Oh, no, we don't do centralized. We're very decentralized. That's the plan. That's the entire goal. We don't want to be a centralized unit. We don't want to have a hierarchy. That's very kind of anti-Assange. So we are very decentralized. That's the point.
Right. I understand that. I'm not suggesting that. Okay. I'm calling for it. But for example, in the Medicare for All area, we're beginning to organize simply a network. It's also decentralized. Okay, and it's going to remain decentralized. But at the same time, there are communications links.
Oh, yeah, there are communication links. Like I could contact the San Francisco group anytime I want to. There are just a lot of groups. And so I don't have direct communication personally with every single group.
Right. I get that.
So my question is, do you share things like campaign techniques?
Sometimes we will steal ideas from each other. Like Paula and I often steal ideas off of each other. Who's in Boston? That's another big city. I forgot. Paula does. They do. I think they're every other week, twice a month. I think that they protest in the like downtown Boston area. But I'm constantly stealing ideas from her. She's very creative, and we are always bouncing ideas off of each other. It's just you have your groups that you've met up with. I've actually like protested with Paula, so obviously we're friends. We speak on a regular basis. I'm in Ohio. San Francisco is very far away. I don't communicate with them as often, or really ever at all. I communicate with the LA crew because of Glory and the Combo Couch. So yeah, it's just you can't communicate with everybody. There is kind of a sharing of information and ideas. I think we all steal ideas off of each other. Nobody cares. There's no ego involved for the most part. There's obviously going to be some turds in the poll in the bowl. But yeah, we're always trying to, improve what we're doing. Sometimes we have disagreements about what's an effective strategy. And some people will do their own thing and somebody else may disagree with that and they'll go do something else. And that's fine.
Is there any possibility that you can organize something like a 56 cities march for Assange?
Oh, we've done that. Just recently, we had over 60 cities in 14 different countries.
60 cities in 14 different countries, but I mean just in the United States.
We could definitely probably try. This is more of a global issue. So, we definitely try to get as many people involved as possible. Like I said, the United States, we didn't have a movement for Assange up until recently. So it's just now starting to grow.
Okay. I'm still curious and concerned about the kind of networking that could be done to grow opposition.
Yeah, but we're doing it. We've been doing it. Like I just said, it's been growing steadily for the past 2.5 years in the United States. Across the globe, it's been growing for, a decade or more. And there have been people in the United States who have been involved for longer than 2.5 years. But with a global media blackout, this is something that's really difficult. With
Yes.
something like Medicare for All, people talk about that. That's a very easy issue to get people
And
on
we
board
still
with.
have a hard time getting people out in the streets for Medicare for All.
Yeah. So, obviously we're doing, quite a bit of work. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And with a media blackout, we're up against, an entirely different animal than an issue like Medicare for All is, because you don't, Medicare for All, everybody's talking about that. Everybody's, especially right now during the pandemic, everybody's talking about healthcare. Nobody's talking about Julian Assange.
Yeah, that is very true.
Well, and then Donziger too. Like Donziger is here.
Nobody's talking about him either.
I know, and it's killing me because that is really corporate fascism, period.
Yeah. CNN did a segment on it after he went to prison. It's very
I know.
helpful.
I know.
Big help.
Yeah.
That was
But that's what we're up against in the whistleblower community and the journalism community. This isn't stuff that gets talked about. So it's, again, we're up against a complete blackout, and then we have to struggle to get people involved and to talk about it because it is a third rail issue and nobody really wants to talk about it. And so it's not, and I don't mean to say that Medicare for All is easy, but it's definitely easier than trying to get people to talk about Julian Assange.
No, I personally, up to my ears and all of that when it all was going down. Up to my ears.
When it comes to Medicare for All, yes, it's easier to get people talking about that. And people do talk about it. But there seems to be an iron cast, just a block on it in the Congress, really preventing any progress.
Well, that's because they're owned by insurance companies.
Sure.
Of course.
Sure. So,
However,
Miss Mimi, I'm sorry, Joe, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, quite all right. Go ahead.
So we can't get Americans we don't have the culture that they have in Europe or in Australia or Greenland where people get into the streets. It's just not something that America has done. Be it because
well, to be fair, though, there's a reason for that. It's because we don't have a social safety net. When your healthcare is tied to your job, it's much more difficult to convince people to get into the streets and risk their job to protest an event. So, yes, we need to get into the streets, but we also need to make sure that there's a strong mutual aid network in order to make that possible for people.
Right. So bear with me here. We've got people that are organizing for a general strike, right? Trying to put those mutual aid networks together. We've got, as an activist, and healthcare is my major one, but I am absolutely convinced, and I know this in my heart, but just trying to convey it to other people. Our free, what's happening with Julian Assange, our First Amendment rights, press freedoms, critical, right? The need to get Congress to stop pigeonholing legislation so that we can get these pieces of legislation that should be coming to the floor individually. We should be making all of our representation vote on these things. They stick them all in one big bill and nobody knows who's against it. Nobody knows who's for it. It runs cover for everybody. We get bills pigeonholed in committees because everybody's on the take, right? Like, what I see is, and Laura and I talked about this on our first Knit the Revolution show that we did last Monday. As activists, when we start to look around and realize that all of this stuff is caused by the same problems, right? We have an oligarchy, we have corporate rule, we have corporate agency masquerading as representation, right? It's all the same animal.
It's the same animal, and we have the corporate media screening the whole thing.
Right. We've got corporate propaganda.
Controlling the flow of information, drowning out alternative media.
It's almost to me
drowning
like
out the truth was
if
just
we could get the
propaganda.
activists, if we could get the activists who realize all of this stuff to be able to call on one another and say, "Hey, we're doing X, Y, and Z." Okay, today's the song.
We've been doing that. We've been doing that. So Action for Assange, we have made a regular attempt to join forces with other issues that are, generally related. We've done cross protests with the Fuck Censorship movement and also with the End the Damn Wars movement. We are regularly reaching out to other causes, other issues that have, similar, kind of a back story, I guess, or whatever. But again, like for me, the Assange issue affects everything. So even Medicare for All activists should be, joining in the fight for Julian Assange. And and that's like Joe just said, you have, the mainstream media. That's why Julian Assange is so important. It's all about narrative management. They have complete control over the narrative. We cannot break through any of that. It's really difficult. They control the algorithms. They control the search engines. They control all of it. They control mainstream media. We have no access to actual truth. And nobody has done more to expose that and to expose empire than Julian Assange. And so, we have to kind of build those coalitions, which we have been working very hard to do over the past 2.5 years. And I wish more groups would do that.
Well, we're all here. Like, I'm all in. So whatever we can do, because even like the climate activists should cross over, right? Because
yes, Julian Assange has exposed an incredible amount of environmental corruption, an unbelievable amount.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's what I see, is that I'm tired of trying to get people on the corners to start marching. I need the activists. We need to start realizing that we are all connected and we need to help one another. We need to be that, okay, this is what we're doing. We're going.
That's why I so regularly advocate for discussing things with people and working with people that you don't agree with on everything, because we need each other. We can't really have these conversations or fight for any like healthcare or the environment or anything until we deal with the system that's designed to kill us all. Once we deal with that, we can have our disagreements about everything else. That's fine. But we have to start, attacking the beast at its head. And we can't do any of those things unless we deal with the, the American empire, essentially, and its, little sister states, the Five Eyes countries. Once we deal with that, we can have our disagreements. But we all need to come together to kind of attack the beast as it is.
Right. I agree with you.
Right. But it's a very complex system, okay, that we're dealing with. And we have to find a way to untie it at specific strategic spots. There are strengths in that system which can also be vulnerabilities. In other words, particularly strong points that reinforce, a number of other things. But if we could knock off one of those strong points, then perhaps there would be a lot of other struts that would also collapse. So it's that kind of situation. For me, the press is really critical. Their control over the press. And if we could somehow disrupt that, we could make lots and lots of progress. Of course, campaign financing and contributions to issues, all the money, the oligarchy unleashes. How do we get rid, of that money? Of course, the Supreme Court is standing in the way because corporations, are persons, and money is speech. There is a way to get around that, but we have to have the people in Congress who would be willing to pass the laws that cut out the Supreme Court from the action, basically, that stop them from actually reviewing laws. And we still would have to have enough people in the Congress, though, to pass a law like that.
That's not ever going to happen. Not in this system. The system is too far gone. It's too corrupt. If you just look at the progressives that we got elected, they've been very thoroughly co-opted and absorbed into the system. They are the status quo.
Yes, I do agree. They've been supporters of the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about going into the streets, and we expect that to have an effect. So the question is, can we go into the streets with a mass movement, make it sufficiently powerful and constant that we can make specific demands upon them, like demands, for example, for new campaign finance laws that exclude the Supreme Court from having the authority to review those laws. Congress has the authority to do that. We might be able to demand that such laws be passed. And if we have enough people in the streets actually demanding that, we might get some action on it. And then that would open up the floodgates with respect to stopping the financing. There are also some other things, okay, that we could do. I think the voter suppression and the gerrymandering, okay, is very important.
I'm in Ohio. I know.
Yes, but when
Right.
you
It's bad
combine
here.
that with the effects of the media, you put that all together, it's very, very difficult to overcome that. So if you could get, a national law that got rid of the gerrymandering, and got rid of the voter suppression, and again, that had language in that law stopping the Supreme Court, from interfering, then you might be able to get a much better result. But when it comes to the polls,
Well,
also,
I'm sorry, with Julian, and the action behind Julian Assange being that it's press freedoms and freedom of speech, it goes hand in hand with the media blackout. We need to re-regulate the Federal Communications Commission. Like, we've got to break up these media.
right. But from the
monsters.
standpoint of law, one of the things we have to demand is the repeal of the Espionage Act.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That-
There are a
right.
lot of things that we need to address. Our country's a hot mess.
It is.
So, there are a lot, but yes, we can affect change, but we're not going to be able to elect our way into that change. It's going to take a mass movement of people, making it impossible for them to ignore us. And then it needs to be a very organized, and strong movement that will not back down. And again, we need incredibly strong mutual aid networks for that to happen. If you're going to get into a strike situation, whether it's a general strike or more targeted strikes, I'm more of a fan of targeted strikes, but
mutual aid backup. If you don't have the mutual aid backup, it's going
no, because once you get into a strike situation, you cannot back down.
Right.
And so in order to sustain a strike for a lengthy period of time, which is what it will probably take, we really need to be able to take care of those people who are, putting their bodies in the gears.
Right.
So
on the front line, there has to be enough, just enough money and other resources to sustain them while they're doing this. I think we all realize that, but that's an enormous organizational problem,
mhm.
which we have to solve. And we're not going to solve it in 2 weeks, right? And we're not going to solve it in 2 months.
No, but that doesn't mean we can't go ahead and make a lot of noise about Julian Assange. We can save Julian Assange's life without mutual aid or strikes. We can, we've seen it across the globe where people just get into the streets and they affect change. It happens all the time. We are led to believe that that's not something that can happen. It can absolutely happen.
I entirely agree. I am quite aware of that sort of thing happening, and the color revolutions in Eastern Europe used that kind, of mass protests to get change, in those countries. But we don't see color revolution type of activity here in the United States, perhaps because the CIA isn't in back of it here, where they were.
And also because we have an extreme media blackout, so most people have no idea what's happening around them.
I think that's it. I really do. I think that's what it is.
Yes,
People
it's all
just
about
don't-
narrative control. We have no idea what's happening. When there are strikes in other countries, the reason why we think it's not possible here is because we don't hear about the success that other countries are having. You have to go and seek out that information. So, the average person who's working 2 jobs and has to take their kid to soccer practice and mow their grass, they don't have the time to do the research that it takes to get informed about what's happening and what's successful around the globe. So again, that's what we're up against. And that's why we need to be fighting the fight for Julian Assange and press freedom even more strenuously, because it literally affects everything else that we're trying to fight for. So we need to deal with that first, and then we can, deal with the organizational stuff that we need to deal with and all of those things. But we're not going to be able to do any of that stuff unless we're able to educate people about what's happening in the world around them.
Yes, I entirely agree with that. What I'm trying to figure out is the pressure points, the proper pressure points that we can push on, okay, in order to break down the narrative that they have.
Well, we need to get people who have big platforms to talk about Julian Assange. That's a big
Yeah.
thing. If you get people who have massive platforms and hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, or they have a hugely successful YouTube show or whatever, like Joe Rogan talking about Julian Assange as frequent or as infrequently as he does. He's done a few shows. I appreciate it when he does it. It would be amazing if he would do it more often. He has a massive platform, and we need more of that. We need people who have these big platforms.
He does have a massive platform. How do we get him to do shows on Assange, say once a week?
Again, we need help. We need help putting pressure on those people. We need help reaching out to those people. There are a lot of us who are doing it, but if, hundreds or thousands of people are contacting Joe Rogan on a regular basis, asking him to cover Julian Assange, he's going to do it. If hundreds of thousands of, or if thousands of people start contacting, Kyle Kalinske or TYT or any other alternative news source, because the mainstream, we can try to pressure mainstream media, but they're not going to cover it. They're owned by corporations. Their corporate overlords are not going to let them cover Julian Assange, at least not in a fair way. They'll misinform you. They'll spread propaganda about Julian Assange as they've done in the past. So we can attempt to do that. And I've done that in the past. But we really just need to start reaching out to celebrities, blue checks on Twitter who have, like Kim Kardashian has like millions of Twitter followers. If we could get her talking about Julian Assange, do you have any idea how many people would now be informed about Julian Assange? Tons of people.
Yes.
So we need people regularly contacting those kinds of people to get his name in the public consciousness, to get his name into like kind of pop culture.
Right.
That's really how this country operates. We celebritize everything. So if we can make Julian Assange one of those issues that's, really, it's like a hip topic to be talking about, we win.
Yes. So you're suggesting that we pressure the most successful people in the non-corporate media to get them to talk about Assange.
Entertainment people, movie stars, musicians, celebrities, anybody really with a huge platform who is going to be somebody who might be empathetic to the cause. Anybody that we can get. I tweeted at MC Hammer the other day. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what political party they come from. I don't care. I don't care what ism you subscribe to. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care. Julian Assange is a post-partisan issue. It affects all of us equally. We have to be able to and willing to reach out to anybody and everybody who has the kind of platform that we can exploit to get more people paying attention to what's happening to Julian Assange. So Tucker Carlson is a great example. He is a horrible human being, but he has a huge platform. He gets 3 to 5 million viewers every single night, and he regularly covers Julian Assange and has legitimate people on who know what they're talking about, like Glenn Greenwald or Jimmy Dore or Pam Anderson or Rose McGowan, to talk about Julian Assange. And we need to get more people. Tucker Carlson is probably going to be the only person that we get on mainstream media to cover Julian Assange in a real way. But if we can start getting more people outside of the corporate media sphere or outside of the political sphere, that's really what we need to do. Most of Americans don't pay attention to politics. They really just do not. They don't have time. They don't have the energy. And so if we can get people who are more pop culture related, somebody like Justin Bieber, who has huge, like if we could get young people who are really into Justin Bieber or Lil Nas X, if we could get him to start talking about Julian Assange, we win, period. We win. Once we start galvanizing a huge base of people, that's how we win. And we have to start getting creative about doing that and reaching out to people who are outside of our general circles. That's how we do it.
That's very interesting. I'm still trying to figure out how do we do that? Do we simply organize ourselves into Twitter groups?
You can. They have a lot of these people have published any contact you can use. A lot of them on their websites will have where you can contact them or contact their agents or whatever. Do whatever you can do. Write them letters, tweet at them, get on their Instagram, leave comments under their Instagram posts or on their Instagram stories. Whatever you can do. That's how we got Russell Brand to cover Julian Assange. We just tweeted at him, and then he has a link on his website where you can email him and suggest story ideas. because multiple people did that, and he covered Julian Assange.
Hmm.
It's how we got Ryan Knight to cover Julian Assange. I bugged him on Twitter and bugged him on Twitter and bugged him on Twitter, and he covered Julian Assange. And that's what you have to do. You just have to keep pressuring these people. And again, if like it's just me doing it, that they're gonna, it's very easy to ignore me. But if thousands of people are reaching out to Kanye West or whoever, and getting the information in front of him, and then he realizes that that's an issue that he would like to talk about, and he does, that's millions of people who are now hearing the name Julian Assange for the very first time.
So you're saying we have to organize the celebrities?
I don't even know if we have to organize the celebrities. We just need to start getting them to talk about it. I don't need them to be organized. I just need them to use their platforms to speak on the issue. I don't know that they would organize around this cause, but like Kim Kardashian has done a lot of work on prison abolition and about getting prisoners released. And if we can get her attention and let her see what's happening to Julian Assange in prison, that he's being tortured, and she speaks on it, again, she's like 4 million Twitter followers. That's a huge deal. So I don't know that we necessarily need to get them organized. We just need to start pressuring them and trying to get them to speak on the issue, because once they speak on the issue, again, that's millions of people who are now hearing about it for the very first time. And if even like a tiny percentage of those people are interested, like get interested in it and then go do some research and then they get involved, that's a huge win for us.
Sure. So is that what you're doing?
Among other things. We've been doing that for a long time. We've been reaching out to people for a long time. We do lots of things. We, contact the DOJ and the White House on a regular basis. We've done letter writing campaigns. We've protested in front of the Department of Justice. We've done marches through the streets of DC. We've done lots of things. There are always things that we can continue to do. We need to start getting more creative. We need to start making more noise. We need to start, potentially getting arrested. Because once people start getting arrested, the media, it's really difficult for the media to then ignore that protest. Whatever we have to do, we have to, activism is always like an evolving life form. So, you just kind of have to keep doing things, trying different things, seeing what works, what doesn't, and, just trying, to keep things moving. But I can tell you that just over the past 2.5 years, seeing the growth of the movement, we can definitely get this done. We just need it to happen faster. Julian's going to die. He's going to die.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's certainly going to die if they send him over here.
Yes.
He's going to die over there too.
He's going to die over there. He is in horrible conditions. He's being held in solitary confinement. He's in Belmarsh prison, which is a gazillion years old. It doesn't have an adequate heating system. Last winter, he was left without his warm clothes and had to insulate his windows with books. He was given a laptop with the keys glued down. He's unable to participate in his defense. He isn't able to meet with his lawyers on a regular basis. He doesn't get to see his family on a regular basis. He's being tortured. That's not me saying that. That's the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer, saying that. They are torturing a man to death in broad daylight. And the fact that more people aren't up in arms about that, human rights activists and all of that, it's really quite frustrating to me that people are not, more angry about what's happening to Julian Assange as a human being, and then just as, the broader picture of what's happening to him and how it affects all of us.
Well, the more oppressed people are here on a regular basis, the harder their lives are, the harder it is for them to look outside their own walls. Mm-hmm. Which is the other thing I think that is the problem with the United States right now.
And that's why we need a public pressure campaign, because we just getting past the media blackout and getting those people informed. Seriously, I am in my community on a regular basis talking about Julian Assange, and most people that I talk to are one of two people. They've never heard of him, or they hate him and they don't really know why. So that's what we're up against. We're either dealing with the near complete media blackout, or we're dealing with the unbelievable propaganda campaign that's been waged against this one human being for over 10 years. They have leveled every smear in the book that they can at this dude. I mean, some people will call him a traitor. He's not American. He can't be a traitor. They've the sexual assault claims. He's a hacker. He's a Russian. He got Donald Trump elected. He smears poop on the walls. He doesn't take care of his cat. All of these things over the past decade that they've said about him, people will
incessant propaganda.
Yes. And it's been a very concentrated and organized effort to destroy the character of this one man.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crime.
Yes.
As we said, when we started. The problem is that we may be furious about this inside, hugely angry that this is happening. But we may be incapable, okay, of acting because we don't know where to push. We don't know where to channel the anger we feel about this and the frustration we feel about this. There are so many things these days that we have these feelings about. The way you combat it is with a huge amount, okay, of energy. You channel your anger into that energy, okay, and that activism. It's obvious when someone talks with you that that is what you're doing, that your life is really possessed by that. And that lets you get over the feelings of what can I do, the feelings,
Frustration, isolation.
It's learned helplessness. In this country,
Right.
we are subjected to learned helplessness. We've been propagandized to think that we have no control, we have no power, it's not worth it. Why even bother? And we need to get over that, and we need to get over it quickly. That's not true. The people have an immense amount of power.
Right. That is true. And some of us have gotten over it with respect to particular causes that we are fighting for, okay, and working for. Like, for example, Medicare for all for ourselves. I am very motivated also to facilitate the acceptance, okay, of MMT, okay, as an economic approach, because I think it is critically connected to ending austerity, okay, in this country. Okay, so I've been very exercised about that, very active about it, and in the Medicare for All field too. So I feel I can have some impact in those fields through writing, through blogging, through organizing with others. I see the Assange problem. Okay. It's hard for me to suddenly turn away from these other causes that
You don't
I've
have to.
devoted so much time, okay, and effort to turn towards the Assange case. I have turned towards it. I have felt a lot of anger about it. I do feel it's a terrible injustice. I do feel it's the hugest threat to freedom of the press we have ever faced, okay, in this country. I do believe with you that freedom of the press is one of the foundations of a democracy. I won't say of our democracy because we don't have a democracy anymore, but if we want to have one again,
We don't have a free press either.
Right.
we're going to have to have a free press. That's a necessity. I see all of these connections. But from where I'm sitting, I guess I'm asking you somehow. We're throwing a tremendous amount of effort into Medicare for All and a tremendous amount of effort into some of the other things that we care about. How do we fit what this appears to be, this huge task, okay, of getting Assange free? And
Well,
then
you don't have to turn away from your other causes. Like I said earlier, nobody's asking anybody to make this their singular cause, their top cause, none of that. All we need is, it doesn't take very much time to send an email or a tweet or make a phone call. It's a very easy thing to do. You can add it.
All those things. And
Yeah, but that's
certainly
what I'm saying. You can do all of those things.
with respect to tweeting. I
Mhm.
certainly have been doing that, okay, with respect to tweeting. Okay, I suppose the problem that I have comes from the fact that I share the view that this is just so important and so central that I'm tempted to drop everything else and start working for this.
If you care about Medicare for all, I wouldn't blame you, because you can't fight effectively for Medicare for all without being able to. I mean, Wendell Potter is a huge example of this. Dude used to write propaganda for the health insurance
Right.
companies. A
Right.
huge part of the reason we don't have Medicare for all is because of the narrative control. And that's what Julian Assange, the cause of Julian Assange, that's a great example right there of the reason why I think people need to be fighting for this. Again, I'm not asking anybody to make it their top cause. I get that they're environmental activists but if you're an environmental activist, it affects you too. This affects you too. It affects literally everything else.
I think where Joe and I have had some very recent conversations about how do we get 20 million people in the streets here in America, right? We've got 350 some million people. How do we get 20 million of them in the streets? Because have we ever done that?
Unfortunately, I'm kind of pessimistic about this because, again, like I said earlier, Americans have lost their spine. There's this crisis of learned helplessness. Nobody wants, and it's a lot of the time, I think it is because people don't know what's happening around them. A lot of people are kind of in a comfort zone. They don't realize how bad it is because it hasn't really affected them in a really dramatic way yet. But I think that it's going to, unfortunately, I think it's going to have to get a whole lot worse before people are willing to get in the streets about anything. And that's just a sad reality. But that's why, with the Assange stuff, we're just trying as much as we can to galvanize people who care at all. Because if you care about anything, you should care about this.
So I just had an idea. Just bear with me. We've got all of these strikes happening, right? If we pepper the picket lines with this kind of stuff and get labor on our side, right? Because this labor strikes are contagious, and they're going to keep going, right? We're going to get more people unionized. There's more announcements there's 32,000 workers. I can't remember which.
Kellogg's going into month 2.
But there's 32,000 new ones coming on now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is going to keep going. So maybe what we ought to do is utilize some of the picket lines and get to the labor and start to talk to them while they're striking, right?
Yep.
Because they're out there anyway. Right?
We've done that. We've gone to political rallies, Trump rallies. I think we went to a Hillary Clinton rally. We didn't get very good reception there, obviously.
See, and I'm a big fan of off-election year protests, because when protests are happening in an election year, it's harder. I mean, unless, forgive me. All of the protests around George Floyd were amazing, right? But they were for that horrific situation.
And they were exploited.
I agree with you.
Politicians use that to get elected.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. When it's not being exploited because you don't have a bunch of politicians running, right? Mm-hmm. They can't co-opt that. We've got this year pretty much. Campaigns are going to start real quick. Mm-hmm. This past year was the year, and we had this big COVID. Yeah, everybody trying to get their kids back to school after a year of them.
Protesting in the past 2 years has been incredibly difficult.
It is. But what I'm trying to get at here is that I think what Joe and I and some other people are starting to realize is, we've got to work what's going on out there, and we've got to be out there with everybody. If there is a pro-war protest, all the activists with all their stuff have got to get involved and be there and help out and reciprocate and make those contacts and those connections, because we have to start realizing that all of this crap, it's all interconnected. It's all coming from the same thing.
And again, we have to band together. There's strength in numbers. Yes. And so anytime that you can build a coalition with another group, you should be working to do that. Unfortunately, on the left, there's this sentiment that you can't talk to people you don't agree with. And you will get pilloried for being somebody who's willing to do that. I mean, I'm willing to work with just about anybody if it's a cause that I care about. I mean, like Palestine, I'm willing to talk to anybody. If you agree about Israel-Palestine and that Palestine should be, let's have a conversation about that. I don't care what your position is on abortion. I don't care what your position on anything else. If we agree on this, let's work on this together and let's get it done, because I care about that issue. But there's a huge thing on the left right now where if you're willing to talk to, they want to sit in their safe space and feel like smugly superior. They don't want to get anything done. They just want to, feel like they're better than everybody else. And it's a really bad thing that we need to start addressing quickly.
Well, I'm in this space where division is a ruling tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's trying to divide leftists is the enemy. They're the enemy.
I'm not even talking about the people in general. Leftists are like leftists. I say leftists because the people who are doing this, I don't consider to be left at all.
Right. And that's where I'm getting. That's where I'm going.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who is seeking to divide the people against the oligarchy is not your friend.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And I'm not saying people come at me all the time. Oh, okay, you're willing to work with Nazis? No, I'm not willing to work with Nazis. I'm willing to have conversations with Nazis because I'm a white person and I can safely enter those spaces and try to have those conversations. So I'm willing to do that. Absolutely. But I will not work with them. I won't invite them into my organizing spaces at all. But there's a lot of people in between Bernie Sanders and literal Nazis. And the left is losing those people because we sneer at them and we look down on them and we mock them and we, pretend like they're lesser than. And the truth is they're just hardworking people who have been propagandized about the wrong things and they're mad at the wrong people. And that's it.
I mean, they're still like, they used to be your neighbors. Now you can't talk to them.
Yeah, I'm in small town Ohio. I'm surrounded by Trump voters. They're not bad people.
No,
they're not. And they agree with me on healthcare. They agree with me on ending the wars. They agree with me on Julian Assange. There's a lot of things they agree with me on. Are they at times casually racist? Absolutely. Will I call that out every single time when I see it? Every time, without question. And so it's, yes, you can have those conversations. And I'm not saying that that's for everybody. I'm not asking like a black person to go have those conversations if that is an uncomfortable position for them to be in. My friend Glory's black. She does it all the time. She's had conversations with Proud Boys. She's not scared. But if that's not for you, I'm not asking anybody who's uncomfortable doing those things to do those things. But I get attacked. We get attacked. The people who do that get attacked for being willing to make those connections and have those conversations and attempt to get those people to come to our side rather than lose them to the right, because that's what's happening right now. We mock and deride them and then they go farther to the right because the right's over there with open arms. Like, come on over. We're having a barbecue next week. And so there's a lot of people that we could be pulling into our circles that we are just pushing away willingly. Like, we're willingly pushing these people away when we could be pulling them into our circles and changing minds and banding together.
So this is a narrative, though, that is out on social media, because if I walk out my front door, that all goes away. Mm-hmm. Right. So I tend to ignore that shit. I really do. I'm not defending myself on any of that.
I ignore it. It's kind of, but we have to push back on that because it then makes other people not want to do those, like not want to go out into their communities and have those conversations. And that's bad. We need to encourage that. We need to make that a thing that's a good thing to be doing, not something that we should be, bastardizing and calling people out on social media and calling them Nazis. I get called a Nazi on a regular basis. I'm a free speech activist. Nazis aren't big fans of free speech, fam. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
But don't you think it's in the bubble?
It is, but again, the Twitter, yes, it's in the Twitter bubble, but the Twitter bubble seeps out into the real world. And so if somebody on Twitter gets yelled at for saying that, yeah, we should have conversations with people we don't agree with, they're less likely to then go have conversations in real life with people that they don't agree with. And that's bad. So we have to start calling that out. We have to start pushing back against that narrative. I ignore it as far as the attacks on myself, but I will fight back against that narrative every single time because I want people to be encouraged to go do those things. I want you to be encouraged to go out in your community and talk to the guy that works I talk to the guy that works at my gas station all the time. Trump voter. He loves college football. I love college football. We talk all the time. We disagree on things. But he's, a good dude. And I have kind of convinced him on healthcare. We talk about Julian Assange. He's like a decent human being. He's just been propagandized against the wrong things. That's it. We're all victims of propaganda.
I think we've all been propagandized.
Everybody. We're propagandized from the moment we're born in this country. From every angle. It's on every TV screen, every magazine cover, every movie, every radio station. We're bombarded We are the most propagandized country on earth. That's not up for debate. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
100% we are. And what's really nefarious about the propaganda in this country is it's very covert. And so a lot of people don't even recognize that it's happening to them. They aren't even able to recognize it when it's blatant. I mean, mainstream media is blatant propaganda, and people watch it and think they're getting informed. And so, I mean, that's what we're up against.
I know. I do know. Believe me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely, I understand the wanting to ignore it and not, give it any credibility, that kind of conversation. But
I don't come across it, Misty. That's what
I do.
I don't come across it.
I do, because I'm a vocal advocate for speaking with people that I don't agree with. And I have relationships and I've built coalitions with people like Magnus, who's a Boogaloo boy, and people will call me a Nazi all day long, despite the fact that he is a former environmental activist. He's a part of the LGBT community. He just organized a huge End the War protest. But he's a Nazi. None of that stuff makes sense. They throw around these terms, but it really, what the whole point of that,
division.
That's the thing. I think a lot of it is coordinated on Twitter, but what I worry about is that on Twitter that then seeps into real life, because there are a lot of people who would otherwise be willing to go out and have conversations with people they don't agree with, but then they're not. It's going to make them less likely to do that if they're hearing that on Twitter all day long every day.
I don't know. People aren't walking around with signs on them saying on Twitter, people think I'm a Nazi.
But I'm saying when you go out into your community and you meet somebody who maybe voted for Trump, you're going to probably just shut that person off, not talk to them, when instead you should talk to them, find out why they voted for Trump. What are the issues that you care about? What made you, think that Trump was going to be fighting for those issues? I mean, but people aren't going to have those conversations when they're on Twitter and they get called a Nazi for wanting to do that. So I worry about that a lot. I think yes, Twitter is a bubble, and yes, Twitter isn't real life, but it is real life. And a lot of what happens on Twitter does seep out into the real world. And we need to be cognizant of that. And we need to be careful about the narratives that we're playing into, even on social media.
Yeah. I don't know. I keep coming back to, how do we, I want to be able to be an activist in support of all other activists who are working on all the things that are going to bring us all down. Because if we all realize that if we were all in the streets at the same time, it would make a difference.
Mm-hmm. And you can do that. I do that. I regularly boost other people's protests. I emceed the Columbus Medicare for All, the March for Medicare for All. I'm constantly trying to retweet other people or donate to people's mutual aid causes, or all of that stuff. You can still do that. You can have your core issue and be super passionate about Medicare for All or about Julian Assange or whatever, and still be in community with other activists. It's really about building community and being in community with other people and being in support of their work. And that doesn't mean that you have to dive head into that cause. It just means that you have to be willing to support and boost and enable and be an ally, and it doesn't mean that you have. I think a lot of people think that if you care about something, you have to dive right into it, and you don't have, you can't, care about multiple different causes. That's not true. Julian Assange and free speech and press freedom is for sure my number one cause. But I, on a regular basis, do things for Palestine, or attend protests for Medicare for All, or whatever. You can do other things too, and you can combine those causes like we do all the time. I care about ending the wars, and Julian Assange has exposed the empire and has exposed the military industrial complex. So you can smash those things together. And we need to start figuring out ways that we can do that. Again, I think if we can start building coalitions of activist groups, we become so much more powerful. And then you don't have to dive into each cause. Everybody can have their own thing, but then you come together when it matters.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I'm seeing now, because I'm like you, Misty. If we don't get up off our rear ends and start realizing that we're not going to motivate everybody who's working 3 and 4 jobs and can't keep a roof over their head and maybe is homeless or 3 steps away from being homeless, and they don't have time for this crap.
No.
Right. But there's enough of us that have enough causes as activists out here. We just need to network up.
Ralph Nader says we only need 3 to 5% of the population to make substantive change. And so we don't need everybody. We need to try to educate as many people as possible, because we do need support, and we do need those people to be at least aware of what's happening around them. That's what troubles me the most, is that so many ordinary people in this country are completely clueless about what's happening in this country and around the world, but just in their own country. Even activists are completely clueless about what's happening in other countries, but most people have no idea what's even happening around them in their own towns, in their own communities, in their neighborhoods. So that's really what troubles me. And that, again, comes back to narrative control, and it comes back to the propaganda and the fact that, we have it's bad. It's really, really bad. Our media is a farce. It is not journalism. It is the propaganda wing of the corporate controlled government. And that's a real problem. We're in a really, I don't know that people realize how dramatically dangerous of a position that we are in.
Yeah, it is. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And for a really, really long time, I've been here, right? And I can talk to people that are fellow activists who are, who realize this, who realize how bad it really is. For, a long time, I've been able to talk to some people about it. Now I think that more and more and more of us are realizing how horrific it is, right? But then I call my mother and I listen to her talk, and I'm like, oh my God, she must have watched CNN for 4 hours today, right? And it's just like, how do I tell my mother that she's like watching too much CNN?
Well, and it's worse than that, because here's really the core issue. It's getting people to recognize that everything they thought they knew is a lie, and that's heavy. That's a really big thing for people to come to terms with, because most people have you don't even know your own history. Like, you don't even know your own history. You have no idea where you come from. And so getting people to come to terms with that, and to even just recognize that as a fact, that's going to be incredibly difficult, because, that's a scary thing, and people don't like scary things. They don't like to have to put themselves in a position of that level of uncomfortability. So we really have to, we have to be willing to meet people where they are. We have to be willing. I'm guilty of this when I talk about Julian Assange. I'm so passionate about it that like everything comes out all at once. Somebody in the chat earlier said, does anybody talk faster than Misty? Probably not. But it's because I am so passionate about this, and I want to get as much information out as humanly possible, because I want people to be educated and I want people to be informed. But over the past 6 months or so, I've been trying to rein myself in a little bit and realize that that's overwhelming for people. And especially with the Julian Assange case, it's unbelievable. Like, it sounds like a really bad spy novel or a really bad spy movie. I mean, the guy was being spied on by UC Global and the Ecuadorian embassy. Like, they were stealing his baby's diaper to try to get DNA to find out if it was his kid. There was the CIA was plotting to kidnap him or murder him. There was they had plans of shootouts in the streets of London. And I mean, it sounds like a terrible, but it's all real. This is all really happening to this guy. But when you come at people with that much information all at once, for the uninitiated, that's a lot. That's a lot. I can do that with the people in my circles, because these are mostly people who are, relatively well informed. But when I go talk to Joe Schmo down the street who watches CNN, I can't do that. I have to learn to, we kind of have to learn to tailor our approach. And a really good example of that, I went on a libertarian podcast several months ago, and I was very cognizant of the fact that it was a libertarian podcast. And so I tailored my message. I used buzzwords like patriotism and constitution and freedoms and civil liberties and all of those things that I know that libertarians care about. So I think that we have to, kind of learn to tailor our message to the audience that we're speaking to. And I think that we can really learn and learn to do that in a way that we can bring people in, because we're able to, hit them where it matters to them. And I don't think that's manipulative. I just think that means that we're, putting it in a way that makes sense to them and meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, that's what that is. That's what that is. The other side of this coin that I barely even like to touch on with most people is there's a lot of fear associated with this for a lot of people, in the sense that, the DOJ is after him. Their, intelligence is not going to look favorably upon this. And when you're in those circles, you don't want to, there's a lot of people that are just not going to even want to talk about it. Right. And that's tough. That's really hard. But for me, it just comes right back to the same place. You cannot kill press freedoms. You cannot go after people with the Espionage Act that because you were exposed as doing things that were criminal, right?
The most atrocious war crimes.
Yeah.
Rape, torture, double tap, strikes. This is seriously the most grotesque things you can think of. That's what Julian Assange has exposed. And not a single person who was guilty of those crimes or who helped facilitate those crimes have ever seen the inside of a courtroom or a jail. Absolutely. The only two people who have seen prison time or the courtroom is Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange. And that's the case all the time. When the torture program was revealed by John Kiriakou, he's the only person who was penalized. We have a tendency to do this in society, and we need to figure out a way to fix it. We always punish our truth tellers. We always otherize them. We shun them. We turn our backs on them. We need to learn to stand with our truth tellers, and not years and years later, like we did with Daniel Ellsberg. I mean, he was derided and he was, mocked and all of that stuff when it was all happening. And then years later, all of a sudden he's a hero. We did the same thing with Edward Snowden. Everybody hated Edward Snowden until recently. And now people are like, oh, he's a hero. And where were you years ago when he needed you? So we need to learn to stand with our truth tellers, from the moment that they come out and speak the truth. Yes. Because it's an incredibly courageous thing that they're doing. What Julian Assange has done. I mean, I tell this story all the time, but to me, it just speaks to who Julian Assange is as a person. In 2017, he was already years into illegal and arbitrary detention in the Ecuadorian embassy. He already knew full well that he was enemy number one of the largest empire on earth. And what did he do? He released Vault 7, which is the largest CIA leak in history. Right. That's who we're dealing with. This is a guy who is doing what he's doing because it's the right thing to do. And he knew when he released Cablegate, there's a famous quote from him where he said, "They will chase me to the ends of the earth." I'm paraphrasing here, but I have to release this information because it's the right thing to do. And that's the kind of guy that we're dealing with. He's exposed some of the most atrocious war crimes, some of the worst corruption, and not just, the corruption of government, the corruption of corporations, the corruption of the banking systems. He's really gone after all of the heavy hitters with great risk. Yeah. With great risk to his own personal safety and the loss of his freedom. And that's to me, that's why I think that he is somebody who is to, be celebrated. Anybody who's willing to do those things at great personal risk, like he has done, is somebody that we should celebrate. That's not to say that he's perfect. That's not to say that we should idolize him, worship him, celebritize him. No, but we should definitely stand against what's happening to him.
Well, they're embarrassed. They're furious, right? There's a lot of people that would not have woken up to what's going on otherwise, right?
Without Julian Assange, I'm one of those people. The collateral murder video changed my life.
Right.
It 100. John Pilger says it's 360 degrees of murder. He's absolutely right. You cannot watch that video and come away the same. You can't.
There's also an element of being able to tangibly have evidence of what you suspect, right? You can suspect it, you can feel it, you can watch it and say, oh my God, this is all propaganda.
Bernie Sanders being cheated?
Right, exactly.
We all suspected it. Julian Assange gave us, and here's the great thing about WikiLeaks. What WikiLeaks gives us is not conjecture. It's not opinion. It's not like some talking head blabbering on CNN. It's source documentation.
Yes.
It's 100% verifiable, authenticated source documentation, and they've never gotten it wrong. WikiLeaks has never had to retract a single word that they've ever published. And to me, that's an invaluable resource for humanity. Again, it's not like we're just getting like some bits and pieces of rumor. This is legitimate evidence, like real black and white. You look at this, you read it, you decide what you think about it, and we can figure out how to move forward. And to me, that's something that that's what journalism should be. And Julian Assange has said that many times, that journalism should be as much as a science as humanly possible. That's exactly, he revolutionized journalism. He really did, not just in the sense that he does it in a way that it is source documentation, but the secure Dropbox that literally everybody uses now, that's WikiLeaks. That's
Yeah.
that's a product of WikiLeaks.
Right. Okay.
For tonight, okay, I think we have come to the end here. We do have a lot of comments, okay, to take a look at. I don't think we have time to go over all the comments here, but I'll try to pick out the most important ones. Okay, I often do go over all the comments, but unfortunately
Oh,
tonight,
there's 120 of them.
yes,
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, and unfortunately, Lisa and I have something to do at 11 o'clock.
We got a
that
half hour.
we probably have more like 20 minutes because we have to get there a little before for the Zoom call. Anyway, so here we are. I'm back at about 9:33 now, looking for really important comments. So Laura says that I'm saying that related to tonight's topic, it is unacceptable that all elected but progressives are not speaking out. Yes, it is unacceptable.
It's disgusting.
They're supposed to be lefties. They're supposed to be for press freedom. They're supposed to be for.
They're for censorship, Laura. They're for censorship.
Yeah.
They are for censorship. So they cannot claim to be lefties.
No.
They cannot claim to really be progressives if they won't support basic civil liberties. They have to be made to speak out. They should become targets of ours because they're not speaking out.
Bernie Sanders hasn't said Julian Assange's name one single time since he got arrested.
Said boo about
not one single time. Julian Assange gave him everything he needed to combat the election meddling in 2016, the fraudulent primary, and he won't even say his name. That's disgusting.
That is disgusting.
I don't think they're allowed.
Oh, for sure. They I mean, people try to pretend that there. Somebody earlier in the comments was saying that I savagely attack leftists. No, because they don't take dirty money. Well, they do, backhanded ways. And for example, Nancy Pelosi donates to all of them through her campaign. So they are taking dirty money in roundabout ways. But I savagely attack them because they're frauds and they're not standing up for leftist principles and they're capitulating to corruption at every turn. They're not fighting for the things. Bernie Sanders is now they're talking about expanding Medicare. I mean, that's ridiculous. Anybody who is still making excuses for that is not your friend. These are not people who are fighting ridiculous.
For you. He went into this and he said, I'm for expanding Medicare to maybe 55 to 60. You don't go into negotiations saying maybe 55.
Yeah.
In other words, you go into a negotiation with more than what you're willing to settle for. And if you say maybe this, people already know you're going to fold.
Yeah, they go into a negotiation like at the very bottom. You know what I mean? Like they don't even go in. He's still talking about $15 an hour. $15 an hour is an insult, y'all. That's an insult. That is an insult.
I know.
It's ridiculous. And people are still making excuses for these progressives. Nope.
Yeah, we just were interviewing a candidate 2 days ago, Kyle Davis, who's running in Massachusetts for state legislature. He's putting up a $24 an hour minimum wage.
That's still low in my opinion. It should be at least 30, but 24 is better than 15.
It's a hell of a lot better than 15, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. 15 shouldn't even be part of the conversation anymore.
No, it shouldn't.
That's not even the floor.
Yeah,
that shouldn't even be the floor.
Yeah, it was part of the conversation in 2012.
Yeah.
It's now really, really old news.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a place in the United States where $15 an hour is still a living wage.
Nope. Not a single one.
So,
Not even in Ohio, and it's dirt cheap to live in Ohio.
Right.
It's still
Right.
not adequate.
well, there's some other states where it's even cheaper, I think, than the middle of Ohio. But anyway, let's going on forward here. Laura says, when it's time, the time was long ago to speak out and warn of the very real fascism that we are already living under. None of them are publicly speaking out on behalf of Julian Assange. Now, admittedly, I didn't speak out much at all prior to retweeting the Misty.
That's okay, Laura. Welcome aboard. It's okay. It's never too late to start. I say that all the time. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your position has been previously. If you're willing to jump on board the train to free Assange and protect press freedom, we welcome you. Like we're not going to make fun of you or mock you for not having been vocal before. There's not going to be any of that. We just need you to speak out. So the fact that you're speaking out now is hugely appreciated.
If you type in Julian's name on Google, says Sandy Dagg, all that comes up is the Netflix documentary.
Right.
Ugh.
They are really railroading him.
Y'all.
It's sickening.
That Netflix documentary they released, I'm sure this is just a
It's a
coincidence.
smear.
3 days before the hearings.
Yes.
Is
just
it
a
true
couple-
that that was an old documentary too?
2013.
Yeah, that was an old one.
2013. It is a legit smear piece. It's a very covert smear piece. Like they don't go directly after and like do a full blown character assassination, but it's filled with misinformation. It's filled with garbage. And 3 days before
Right,
the
and
appeal hearings, they
it's
launched that
still
on Netflix.
character assassination, too.
Ugh.
It may not be upfront character assassination.
No, I'm
but
just saying they were very smart about it. It's not obvious.
assassination. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Disgusting. Yeah, there was a protest on Tuesday in New York at the Netflix headquarters.
Yes, I know. KRTD Media did that.
Yeah.
I did the
What's that?
commentary.
Boycott
on-
Netflix.
Yeah. We are connected to KRTD Media
Mhm.
as well. So we
Hi, Shane.
we were involved in that. And Steve Gunter says, anyone talk faster than Misty?
Probably not.
And Steve says, I lost a ton of JA comrades when Facebook disappeared me.
Listen, Julian Assange warned us in 2014 about Facebook. That is the world's worst spying operation. It is not social media. That is a spying operation. Get off Facebook if you can.
Yes. And Steve Day says, my squad does MMT. Who is your squad, Steve Day? Laura Fielding says, we do not have nearly the mass movement for Medicare for all that we need. So it's clear to see on a comparative scale that we need somehow to wake more people up. There's a lot of people talking about M4A. There are not a lot of people acting. We are the sleeping giant. The question, how do we wake people from this stupor? And of course, that's also the question for Julian Assange. How do we wake people from this stupor about free speech and free press and free assembly and all our civil liberties and how important they are to our lives over the medium term and the long term? They may not be very important in terms of the way people look at their day-to-day lives, but they are vital when it comes to shaping the narrative over
And
a
shaping
period
the
of
future.
time. And shaping the future.
Once you lose these rights,
the future
you don't get them back.
is shaped by the narrative.
Mhm.
If they control the narrative, they control the future.
And they damn near completely control the narrative now. We have like a little sliver of independent media and stuff here and there, and they're trying desperately to extinguish that.
And what they
There's
plan for
demonetization,
us-
deplatforming. Yeah.
What they plan for us is a life that is nasty, brutish, and short.
You will have nothing and you will like it.
Yes, and you will like it because you can't do anything about it anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly how they want it.
Yes, that's exactly what they're trying to get, and it's getting worse and worse for us with each passing year. Oh, and by the way, just to say something with respect to COVID, someone said, okay, just a little while ago, how bad do things have to get, folks, we just lost 1 million people to COVID because of the mismanagement of the pandemic.
The
Here in the
intentional
States.
Right.
mismanagement.
The
Right.
intentional mismanagement. We lost 1 million Americans. We are now running something like 2,300 fatalities per million. New Zealand has roughly 5 fatalities per million compared to 2,300. They were a country that figured out how to manage COVID, how to live a normal life under it, how to stop
They
their
don't have a normal life. They're
driving
under extreme
people.
lockdowns.
Well, they're under extreme lockdown from time to time when it shows
When this virus starts to spike.
when there's an outbreak. They clamp down. But by clamping down on the outbreak when they have it in certain local areas, the rest of the country does live a normal life at that time. And COVID does disappear in a month in the local area where it flares up if you totally clamp down on it. So we have to recognize that we tolerated this mismanagement. We tolerated this poor performance here. We supported the poor performance. We still don't think that Trump was a total failure. We still don't think that Biden is pretty bad when it comes to COVID.
Yeah, it's true.
He is. He is.
He's worse than Trump.
He's worse than Trump. He is.
Yeah.
He is.
Well, I don't know if he's worse than Trump.
He's worse than Trump.
He's
when
worse
I
than
look
Trump.
at
Yeah.
the overall statistics, but we can argue about that some other time. The point is, they both have performed sufficiently terribly that no one should even be considering any people like them for the presidency or for office in this country, because they didn't really care to do the things that were necessary to get rid, of COVID. And that makes them failures as presidents of the United States. Anyway, I'm going on.
I don't know. I'm getting really depressed over the last several days.
Oh, I've
Just
been
because-
dealing with a very serious case of burnout over the past month. Anytime I have to deal with the court dates and all that stuff and listening to them talk about Julian Assange's mental health and the way that he's being treated, it's unbelievably damaging to my mental health. You know what I mean? It's really
Yeah.
difficult to do. I mean, woe is me. It's really difficult to do what I do and have to, learn and study about special administrative measures and the torture of journalists and, illegal renditions and, all that stuff. It's not a lot of fun.
I'm sure it's not a lot of fun. In fact, I've learned enough about it that I know it's not a lot of fun.
It's not a lot of fun. 2.5 years of it will really do something to you.
I think anybody that is aware of how dire this whole situation is, that's doing activism, that truly is aware that if we don't do something now, I don't know that we're going to come back from the brink.
If we lose press freedom, if we lose the First Amendment, which essentially that's what this will, you don't get that back. We don't get the Patriot Act was supposed to be temporary, fam. We're 20 years later?
Yeah.
We still don't have those freedoms back. Once you lose freedoms, it is damn near impossible to get them back. That's why we have to fight now.
It
We
is
can't fight later.
impossible to get them back without an overthrow of the government,
Yeah.
Right.
without extreme bloodshed.
And that means, that's a lot of bloodshed. A lot of people will get hurt.
Yes. Kay says, Joe said he might be able to see me here, but hasn't spoken to me yet. Well, hi, Kay. I'm here. Kay, I did see you, but there hasn't been a chance to call attention to you. So I'm very glad you're here. I hope you'll keep on coming. And going further quickly. So Laura says, I put 2 tweets in that new indie media group. The one Shane expanded and added people to. Asked everyone to tweet out #FreeAssange and put 2 tweets in there related to this show. So far, nothing. So even among people who care the most among us, there sometimes is very little traction and by reciprocity.
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 Welcome to
Good
my
word,
world, Laura.
reciprocity. That's what we need. Reciprocity. And solidarity is another good word. We need that
Community. We need community.
one.
Yeah, we
Community,
do.
yet another good word. And Sandy says, couldn't we just get people to put 3 articles about Julian's trial on their pages every day or on Twitter? Yes, I think
Kevin Gostola does great work covering the Julian Assange
I
case.
love Kevin.
Yes, he does.
Stefania Maruzzi does a great job covering the Julian Assange case. Mary Kostakidis does a great job. Muhammad Almazi. There's a lot of journalists that you could be retweeting on a regular basis. If you want, I'll put together a list of people. I'll start sending you articles if you want to start tweeting stuff out. If you want to start, and not even just tweeting it, sharing it with your friends and family, like normal everyday people who don't get on Twitter and aren't, those people in real life, like we talked about. Like that's the kind of stuff that we need to start doing. Start emailing them to your cousin or whatever, and getting them involved.
Okay, send us the information. I can't speak for anybody else, but I will do it. I'm sure.
I mean, Misty, we follow you. I follow you. I think I have you on alerts.
I retweet stuff. People make fun of me all the time and call me a cultist because all I do is talk about Julian Assange. That's because nobody else is talking about Julian Assange. So I have to. It's not a huge platform, but it's a moderately sized platform. And I have to use whatever I can to try to get, and all of my Assange tweets are shadow banned. I love it when people say that I'm a grifter, because if I was a grifter, I chose the wrong issue to grift on. It is the hardest issue to get out there. It's the hardest issue to get people on board with. It's terrible. So yeah, I mean, I tweet stuff all the time, daily, like multiple times a day.
Yeah,
so yeah.
I know. I'm shadow banned too. I mean, it's sickening, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there are a lot of other comments. Some of them are very, very good comments, but it's about 10:46. And so I'm going to have to end this. I will say one thing to Carmen Yunez, who asks, is Michael Sterling still in prison? It's Jeffrey Sterling.
Jeffrey Sterling. No, he's not. In fact, he's done several Assange panels recently.
Yes.
He's been a great advocate for Julian Assange. We appreciate him very much.
Right.
There seems to be a lot of solidarity between whistleblowers and other people who have been persecuted in the same way or similar ways that Julian Assange is. John Kiriakou is a huge supporter. Ray McGovern, Bill Binney. Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of solidarity from Chelsea Manning, but that's, Edward Snowden's been great. So yeah, there's been a lot of solidarity amongst whistleblowers and things for Julian Assange, and that's really great to see.
Okay, so Misty, thank you very much for coming, and thank you.
Yeah, Misty, this has been great, and I'm sorry. I know this is just so heavy.
Yeah, I'm in one way I'm used to it. In another way, like I said, I'm dealing with a lot of personal burnout. Like the past month has been pretty difficult, just personal stuff. And then on top of that, all the Julian Assange stuff. I'm getting better at learning to take breaks and sort myself out and keep myself centered, because it is really heavy. I'm not going to lie. It's really difficult to do day in and day out, and have to read the stuff that I read and learn the stuff that I learn. It's not a lot of fun. So, I mean, I will caution people, when you're jumping into the Julian Assange stuff, it's not an easy thing to learn about. The stuff that you're going to learn is really dark. But it's something that you have to. Don't look away. You don't have to immerse yourself as heavily as I have. In fact, I don't recommend it if you value your mental health. But we definitely need people to get more involved and to really dig into what this means for all of us. This isn't just about Julian Assange. This is about all of us.
It is. It's about all of us. And this is, I'm looking at Fran Bauer. She made a post here, and it says, for me, it's the same feeling of helplessness with all the other issues as well. And I think that's what I'm feeling right now, because I just keep feeling like we keep running into brick walls. But anyhow, our Earth, fracking, endless wars, 68,000 dying per year for lack of health care, student debt, homelessness.
Yeah, and that was before COVID.
Right. That feeling of helplessness doesn't stop us from doing what we can for justice sake, fight on all fronts, or FOF, which is what we've been saying now.
You
Is
can
that-
either lay down and die, or you can stand up and fight. Those are your two choices. And I'm not a lay down and die kind of person. So, you know, I will
I'm
fight
not
until the bitter
that
end.
kind of person either.
Yeah, I will fight until the bitter end.
Fronts kind of person.
Yep.
Okay, so folks, thank you all for coming. This has
Misty,
been.
keep in touch. If you like,
Yeah.
whatever, like, I
We
really
will
mean that.
support you. If you tweet things at us, we will retweet them and we will add stuff and we will support you.
I've got her on my alerts, and every time I log in, I go in and I'm retweeting. So I'm
there all the time. There's plenty of
Yeah.
tweets.
Yeah, I know. I think about a month ago, I stuck you on my alerts. So I'm getting your
Yeah.
feed.
Twitter's a good tool until they, you know, completely destroy it by censoring everybody to death, which we're close to, but I'll use it for as long as I can.
Okay. All right. It's been
Thanks for
a
having me on,
pleasure.
guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
So
Misty.
thank you, everybody. We will see you again soon. But see you again on Saturday. But I think we'll be on again with Misty fairly soon.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll bring you back when they come back with something.
Well, that could be who knows how long.
Then we'll bring.
So we need to make noise now. We need to
Then
put pressure
we'll
on them
bring you
now.
back before that, but yes, we do need to pressure them now.
Yeah, Julian's going into another cold winter. We need to fight now.
Do you think it's going to take months?
Probably.
No.
Every aspect of this has been dragged out to the literal, like, last minute. It's always as dragged out as long as possible. Again, the process is the punishment.
Right. Okay, folks, I'm going to say goodnight now, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
Misty.
guys.